Listen closely. Avoidants don't fall in love the way you think. They don't chase connection the way others do. They don't openly crave intimacy, reassurance, or closeness. But here is the shocking truth most people never realize. Avoidants do get obsessed, deeply, intensely, quietly, and sometimes painfully. They become obsessed with very specific types of people, and when they do, it's not casual attraction. It's a psychological and emotional loop that can keep them stuck for years. They might never admit it. They might even act cold, detached, or indifferent. But inside, something in them is constantly pulled back to certain people, certain energy, certain emotional patterns. If you've ever felt an avoidant pull you in and then disappear, if you've ever felt like they cared more than they showed but could never fully step toward you, this is for you. And if you've ever wondered why an avoidant seems magnetically drawn to some people but distant with others, this will explain everything. Because their obsession is not random, it is wired into their nervous system, their childhood, their fears, and their deepest unmet emotional needs. And by the end of this, you'll understand not only who they obsess over, but why their obsession often turns into distance, silence, and emotional shutdown. To understand who avoidants become obsessed with, you first have to understand what avoidant attachment really is beneath the surface. Avoidants learned very early that closeness was unsafe, unreliable, or overwhelming. Maybe they had caregivers who were emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, critical, or invasive, so their system adapted. They learned to survive by shutting down feelings, by relying on themselves, by pushing away vulnerability before it could hurt them. On the outside, they seem strong, independent, detached, and logical. But on the inside, there is still a human being who wants connection, warmth, love, and safety. The difference is that for avoidants, love feels dangerous. Closeness feels like a threat to their autonomy. Emotional dependency feels like a trap. Vulnerability feels like exposure. So they build walls, distractions, intellectualization, or emotional numbness to protect themselves. But here is the paradox. The same system that pushes love away is also deeply sensitive to certain emotional triggers. Certain people bypass their defenses. Certain energies wake up something buried inside them. And when that happens, they don't just feel interest, they feel obsession. Because obsession for an avoidant is often a mix of desire, fear, longing, and unresolved childhood patterns, all activated at once. So why do avoidants get obsessed in the first place? It comes down to the nervous system. Avoidants are often stuck in a cycle where intimacy triggers fear and distance triggers longing. When someone is unavailable, unpredictable, or emotionally distant, it feels familiar to their early experiences. Their nervous system recognizes the pattern and says, "This is home." At the same time, the unpredictability creates dopamine. Not knowing when someone will respond, pull away, or show affection creates emotional highs and lows, and those highs and lows can feel addictive. When an avoidant meets someone who triggers their attachment wounds and their desire at the same time, it creates an internal storm. They feel pulled toward the person, but also terrified of losing control. That tension can turn into obsession. They may think about the person constantly, replay conversations, fantasize about connection, but still keep distance in real life. Obsession doesn't always look like chasing. Sometimes it looks like silence, detachment, and emotional shutdown, while their mind is constantly circling around the person. And certain types of people trigger this obsession more than others. One of the biggest types of people avoidants become obsessed with is the emotionally unavailable person. This might sound ironic, but it's deeply psychological. Someone who is distant, inconsistent, or hard to reach feels familiar to an avoidant's inner child. It mirrors the emotional environment they grew up in. They may feel drawn to someone who is hot and cold, who gives affection one moment and disappears the next. It triggers their longing and their fear at the same time. They chase the feeling of finally being chosen by someone who seems unreachable. They might feel a strong pull towards someone who never fully commits, who keeps their guard up, who stays emotionally distant, and instead of feeling safe with someone secure and available, they feel bored, overwhelmed, or suffocated. Because for them, love has always been associated with distance. So distance feels like love. This creates a painful cycle. They obsess over the unavailable person, but when that person becomes available, they feel panic. When the person pulls away, they feel obsession again. It's not about logic, it's about emotional conditioning. If you've ever been emotionally unavailable and noticed an avoidant suddenly very interested in you, this is why your distance felt like familiarity. Your unpredictability felt like chemistry. Another type of person avoidants become deeply obsessed with is the independent, self-sufficient person. Someone who doesn't need them, someone who doesn't cling, beg, or chase. Someone who has their own life, boundaries, and identity. To an avoidant, this feels safe. It feels like they won't be consumed, controlled, or emotionally engulfed. They are drawn to people who seem strong, grounded, and not emotionally dependent. They may feel intense attraction to someone who says, "I'm okay with you, but I'm also okay without you." That energy is magnetic to them. It allows them to feel connection without the fear of being trapped. But here's the emotional twist. They may become obsessed with this person precisely because the person doesn't chase them. The avoidance system interprets this as high value, mysterious, and emotionally secure. They may think about this person constantly, wondering what they are doing, who they are talking to, whether they care. They may feel jealous, but never express it. They may feel a strong pull, but act detached. Inside, they feel a mix of admiration, longing, and fear. Admiration for their independence, longing for connection, fear of losing their autonomy. And this internal conflict is what fuels obsession. They want closeness, but only if it doesn't cost them their emotional defenses. They want connection, but only if it doesn't expose their vulnerability. So they are drawn to people who seem whole, independent, and grounded, because part of them wants to feel that safety, and another part wants to prove they can be close without losing themselves. There is another type of person that avoidants become quietly obsessed with, and it might surprise you. It's the calm, emotionally secure person. On the surface, avoidants often say they want someone easygoing, stable, and drama-free. But when they actually meet someone who is emotionally consistent, warm, and secure, something complicated happens inside them. They feel drawn to the safety. They feel soothed by the presence. They feel a strange sense of peace they are not used to. But at the same time, that peace feels foreign. It feels like unfamiliar territory. An unfamiliar territory can feel dangerous to a nervous system that grew up in chaos or emotional distance. So they might feel a deep pull toward someone who is secure, someone who communicates clearly, someone who doesn't play games. They may think about how it feels to be around that person. They may imagine what it would be like to finally relax in a relationship. But that same closeness can trigger panic. They might feel exposed, seen, emotionally naked. They might worry they will be expected to open up, to be vulnerable, to depend on someone. This creates a push-pull obsession. They crave the secure person's presence, but they also fear it. They come close, then pull away. They fantasize about closeness, then create distance. And all the while, that secure person stays in their mind, representing the safety they want but don't know how to accept. Avoidants are also deeply obsessed with mysterious, hard-to-read people. Someone who doesn't reveal much, someone who is emotionally reserved, unpredictable or difficult to understand, someone who keeps their thoughts and feelings hidden. To an avoidant, this feels like a puzzle, and puzzles are stimulating. When they can't fully understand someone, their mind keeps spinning. They analyze every word, every message, every silence. They may replay conversations in their head, trying to decode what the person meant, what they felt, what they were thinking. They may feel a strange pull toward the unknown, toward the ambiguity, toward the emotional fog. This uncertainty creates dopamine. It creates anticipation. It creates obsession. They may think about the person when they are not around. They may imagine scenarios, conversations, futures that may never happen. They may feel a strong emotional pull, but never show it, because admitting they care would mean vulnerability, and vulnerability is the very thing they learn to avoid. So they stay silent, detached, or distant, while inside their mind, the mysterious person lives rent-free. Another powerful trigger for avoidance is emotional intensity. Avoidants often find themselves obsessed with emotionally intense people, especially those who crave closeness, reassurance, and connection. These people feel deeply, express openly, and desire intimacy. This creates a powerful dynamic. On one hand, the avoidant feels overwhelmed by the intensity. On the other hand, they feel deeply validated by being wanted so strongly. They might feel important, special, desired. They might feel like they are someone's whole world. That can be intoxicating for someone who secretly fears being unlovable or insignificant. At the same time, the intensity triggers their fear of engulfment. They worry they will lose themselves, be controlled, or be emotionally trapped, so they pull away. But when they pull away and the other person chases, the chase itself becomes addictive. The avoidant may feel obsessed with the person's emotions, reactions, messages, and presence, even while pretending not to care. It becomes a cycle of closeness and distance, desire and fear, obsession and withdrawal, and both people end up emotionally exhausted. Avoidants are also obsessed with high-value, confident individuals, people who have strong boundaries, people who respect themselves, people who don't tolerate disrespect or inconsistency. These individuals feel powerful, grounded, and self-assured, and for an avoidant, that energy is incredibly attractive. They may admire the person's confidence, they may feel inspired by their independence, they may feel drawn to their calm authority and self-respect. But there is also something deeper. High-value individuals don't chase, they don't beg, they don't overgive, they stay in their power. And that triggers the avoidant's curiosity, desire, and insecurity at the same time. The avoidant may feel obsessed with earning their approval, being chosen by them, or being understood by them. They may feel a strong pull towards someone who doesn't need them but chooses them. That feels validating. That feels meaningful. But again, they may struggle to step into vulnerability. They may keep emotional distance while thinking about the person constantly. They may fear rejection, so they reject first emotionally. Another person avoidants become obsessed with is the healer, the empath, the one who tries to understand and fix them. Someone who sees their wounds, their defenses, their silence, and says, "I understand you, I'm here." This can be incredibly powerful for an avoidant. Many avoidants never felt truly seen or emotionally supported growing up. So when someone shows deep empathy, patience, and compassion, it touches a part of them that has been starving for connection. They may feel deeply attached to someone who listens, who validates, who doesn't judge. They may feel safe opening up in small ways. They may feel understood in a way they never experienced before. But this also creates fear. If someone sees them fully, they risk being rejected. If someone gets too close, they risk losing their defenses, so they may pull away from the very person who makes them feel safe. This creates a painful internal conflict. They want the healer, they want the empath, they want the understanding, but they are terrified of depending on someone. So they obsess in silence. They think about the person, miss them, crave them, but still create distance, because closeness feels like both medicine and danger at the same time. There is another type of person that avoidants become quietly obsessed with, and this one is very revealing. It's the person who challenges them. Someone who doesn't just agree with them, someone who calls out their behavior, someone who doesn't let them disappear without consequences. Avoidants often test boundaries, even unconsciously. They pull away, go silent, or emotionally shut down to see how the other person reacts. When someone chases, begs, or collapses, it confirms their belief that closeness is overwhelming and unstable. But when someone stays grounded, calm, and firm, something different happens inside them. They feel intrigued, they feel challenged, they feel a strange respect and attraction. This person doesn't beg. This person doesn't tolerate emotional games. This person says, "I care, but I won't lose myself for you." And for an avoidant, that can be magnetic. They may think about this person constantly. They may replay the moments where they were called out. They may feel a mix of admiration, fear, and desire. Because this person represents something they secretly wish they had, emotional strength and clarity. And at the same time, this person threatens their defenses. So they become obsessed. But from a distance, they watch, analyze, and think, but rarely fully step forward. Avoidants are also obsessed with people who feel strangely familiar, even if the relationship feels painful. This is the person who mirrors their childhood emotional environment. Maybe distant, may be inconsistent, may be emotionally unpredictable. Their nervous system recognizes the pattern instantly. It feels like home, even if home was lonely, confusing, or unsafe. They might feel an intense pull towards someone who recreates their early emotional experiences. The same feelings of longing, uncertainty, and emotional hunger resurface. They might think, "This feels intense," without realizing it's because it's familiar. Their subconscious is trying to replay the past, hoping for a different outcome. They may feel obsessed with winning the love they never fully received as a child. They may feel compelled to stay in dynamics that hurt them because those dynamics feel normal. This is not weakness, this is conditioning, and conditioning can be incredibly powerful. Another powerful trigger for avoidant obsession is the person who leaves first. Avoidants often believe they are the ones who detach, withdraw, and emotionally exit. But when someone leaves them first, something deep gets triggered. Abandonment is their hidden wound. Even if they act like they don't care, their system registers the loss. When someone walks away, stops chasing, or sets a firm boundary, the avoidant may suddenly feel obsessed. They may think about the person constantly. They may replay what went wrong. They may feel anger, sadness, longing, and confusion all at once. They might feel rejected, unimportant, or disposable, and those feelings are deeply painful, even if they never admit it. So they may become fixated on the person who left, not necessarily to reconnect, but because the loss activated their deepest fear. Sometimes their obsession shows up as coldness, silence, or pretending they never cared, but internally, the person who left can stay in their mind for a very long time. When avoidants become obsessed, they don't experience it the way others do. They feel shame for caring. They feel fear of being seen. They feel confusion about their own emotions. They might think, "Why do I care so much?" Or "Why can't I just detach?" They may feel weak, vulnerable, or exposed. They may fantasize about connection, but also fantasize about escape. They may crave closeness and solitude at the same time. Their obsession is often quiet. It lives in their thoughts, their dreams, their silence, their withdrawal. They might scroll through memories, reread messages, replay moments, but never reach out. They might distract themselves with work, hobbies, or other relationships, but certain people stay in their emotional system, and that internal tension can be exhausting. Loving feels dangerous. Missing feels humiliating. Caring feels like losing control. So they hide it, even from themselves. Here is the part most people never understand. Avoidants often push away the very people they are obsessed with. When feelings get too strong, their system goes into protection mode. They withdraw, they shut down, they become distant, logical, or detached. It's not because they don't care, it's because caring feels unsafe. Closeness triggers memories of being overwhelmed, disappointed, or hurt. Vulnerability feels like giving someone power to hurt them. So when they start to feel deeply connected, they create space, they ghost, delay, distract, or emotionally disconnect. Inside, they may still think about the person constantly. They may miss them. They may crave them. But their fear is louder than their desire. So they choose distance over intimacy, control over vulnerability, silence over honesty. And this is the tragic paradox of avoidant obsession. The more they care, the more they hide. The more they crave, the more they withdraw. Avoidants often live in a dark emotional cycle that they rarely talk about. It starts with attraction, then comes connection, then panic, then withdrawal. At first they feel excited, curious, pulled in. They feel something real, something warm, something they can't fully explain. Then the connection deepens, the person gets closer, the emotional stakes rise. Suddenly, their nervous system senses danger, not because the person is dangerous, but because closeness itself feels dangerous. Their body reacts before their mind can fold. Their chest tightens, their thoughts race. They feel trapped, pressured, exposed. So they pull away. They shut down. They detach. They convince themselves they don't care. They focus on flaws, logic, distance. But when the distance grows, when the person steps back, when the connection fades, something else happens. Longing returns. Obsession returns. They think about what they lost, what they felt, what they avoided, and the cycle repeats. attraction, panic, withdrawal, longing, over and over again. If you are the person an avoidant is obsessed with, their behavior can feel confusing, painful, and contradictory. One moment they seem deeply interested. The next moment they seem cold, distant, or uninterested. They may open up, then disappear. They may flirt, then withdraw. They may say they care, then act like they don't. This inconsistency can make you doubt yourself. You might feel like you're imagining the connection. You might feel like you're too much. You might feel rejected, confused, or emotionally drained. But their mixed signals are not always manipulation. Often they are signs of internal conflict. They feel something, but they are terrified of feeling it. They might stalk your social media, think about you late at night, replay conversations and miss you deeply. But they may never show it. They may never say it. They may never act on it. So you feel the absence. They feel the obsession in silence. If you find yourself in this dynamic, it is important to protect your emotional health. You are not responsible for fixing an avoidant. You are not responsible for chasing someone who runs. You are not responsible for proving your worth to someone who cannot fully receive love. You deserve consistency. You deserve clarity. You deserve emotional safety. You can care about an avoidant, but you should not lose yourself trying to be understood. Set boundaries. Communicate clearly. Step back when needed. Choose yourself. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop chasing, stop explaining, and stop waiting for someone who is still afraid to feel. Your peace matters more than their confusion. Avoidance can change. They can heal. They can learn to feel safe in connection. It takes self-awareness. It takes therapy or inner work. It takes courage to face vulnerability instead of running from it. They can learn that closeness doesn't mean losing themselves. They can learn that love doesn't have to be chaotic or painful. They can learn to stay instead of withdraw, but they have to choose it. You cannot force someone to heal. You cannot love someone into safety if they are not ready. Healing is a journey, and some avoidants are on that path, while others are still protecting themselves from the past. The final truth is this: avoidants are not heartless. They are not incapable of love. They are often deeply sensitive people who learn to survive by disconnecting. Their obsession is not about control. It is about fear, longing, and unresolved emotional wounds. They crave connection, but they are afraid of losing themselves in it. If you are an avoidant, know that your fear makes sense, but so does your desire for love. You are not broken, you are patterned, and patterns can be changed. If you loved an avoidant, know that you were not too much. You were asking for what you deserve. Their distance was about their fear, not your worth. Love is not meant to be a battlefield between closeness and fear. It is meant to be a place of safety, honesty, and connection. And whether you are avoidant, anxious, or secure, you deserve a love that feels like peace, not a puzzle. There is something else people rarely talk about when it comes to avoidance and obsession. Sometimes they become obsessed with the idea of love more than the person themselves. They imagine a connection that feels safe, deep, and effortless. They fantasize about a relationship where they don't feel pressured, judged, or overwhelmed. They replay moments in their mind where they felt close, understood, or emotionally alive. But when real life requires vulnerability, communication, and emotional presence, they freeze. The fantasy feels safer than reality. The idea of love feels safer than the experience of love, so they may obsess over what could have been. They may romanticize someone from the past. They may idealize a person who is no longer available. They may hold on to a memory instead of facing the present. This kind of obsession is quiet and internal. It looks like moving on, but emotionally, they are still attached to a version of connection that felt safe in their imagination, and sometimes they stay stuck there, afraid to risk real intimacy again. And finally, there is a hidden truth that can change everything. Avoidants are often obsessed with people who represent who they wish they could be emotionally. They are drawn to people who express feelings openly, who communicate clearly, who stay present in conflict, who don't shut down when things get intense. These people reflect a version of emotional freedom that avoidants secretly crave. They may feel inspired by that person's emotional courage. They may feel small next to their openness. They may feel drawn and threatened at the same time. because that person represents growth, vulnerability, and emotional safety. And deep down, the avoidant knows they want that too. They just don't know how to get there yet. So their obsession is not just about attraction. It is about longing for emotional wholeness. It is about seeing a mirror of what healing could look like. And if you are that person, remember this: your emotional openness is powerful, your vulnerability is strength, your presence is healing, but you are not responsible for carrying someone who is still afraid to walk toward you. You deserve someone who meets you where you are, not someone who watches you from a distance while wishing they could be closer.